as you said before, it's always challenging to find clients when you are starting out. So what would be like your advice for many people from the audience, from the listeners, how to find your first clients? Because sometimes you can use portfolio, but again, if you're starting out, it's challenging. So what would be your advice on this?
I think 2 points, and one we've kind of already touched on it, is you're going to have to find a unique way of grabbing attention, because credibility at that point, that's kind of problem too, having to retain the clients and deliver the work and things like that. But if you actually never get a chance, I see so many people that are so credible at actually delivering the work, but so bad at being able to stop the scroll and garner attention and create an emotional response with their content, that they never actually get the chance to do that. So I would say focus on the best ways of getting attention as the first point, and whether that might be with your delivery or the platforms that you're using or the content you're distributing. And then also, I think where people struggle is they don't have a deep knowledge of the people that they're helping. They confuse their ideal client profile, which might be, e-commerce brands doing 500K in beauty versus anyone with a website or anyone that sells products online. And that's such a huge market, and you're trying to speak to all those people, whereas actually you can really tailor down and nail down your content and speak to the exact people with the exact pain points that you solve and give them a kind of measurable solution. So a lot of people try and kind of please everybody and wrongly assume that if I speak to more people, there's a higher chance of someone coming through. But this is the whole debate around virality as well. It's a bad thing, but people are so addicted to dopamine and chasing likes that they'll come and make a post and say, "Isn't ice cream tasty?" and get 1,000 likes. But actually they sell software to CFOs in Illinois. Okay, well, what do you need those 10,000 people for? Your target market's 50 people. Speak to them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was about to ask you, when it comes to niching down, because if I remember correctly, you said before that you focus on e-commerce. Correct me if I'm wrong. But when you started, did you also go broad, or did you already focus, or did it evolve over time?
Yeah, so we initially at the start, we did paid, organic social and websites, then very quickly realized that that's a lot of work for a very small team, and it was a bit of a headache, obviously working with SMEs across the board in that. So then we ditched websites pretty fast and basically just outsourced that or just handed it over to somebody else. And then kind of as we've developed now, we've got a real niche in paid. We're very good at it. We have tons and tons of results over the years. And then the organic social conversation was something that we just lost a bit of spark for, because it's something that isn't as easily measurable as paid. It's something that often older people in kind of corporates, they don't really understand the benefit of it and the halo effect and things like that. And we were finding we were actually spending more time justifying and explaining and educating than actually doing the work. So it just, you lose a little bit of spark for it. So we were just kind of like, right, well, let's that can be someone else's problem. Paid, you cannot argue with in any way, shape or form. All the data is there. So we just doubled down into that. And then, paid search and paid social has been absolutely flying for the last few years.
It makes sense. And people can see the results on the website. I was having a look, and
plenty of case studies on there, on the Instagram page, everything like that. So if anyone needs to see any results, we've got plenty of them.
Are there like any impressive clients or impressive specific project that you worked on and you would be willing to share? Maybe something that was challenging, fun, creative, or a great result?
I think getting our first kind of 9-figure client was pretty cool, because it came inbound as well through LinkedIn, and it was through from a DM, but it was like a faceless profile. So, when they have and it's just a blue egg, they were like, "Hey, looking for someone to elevate my business." And I was like, "Yeah, of course, here we go." Some kind of scam or something like that. And then I got on the call and they were like, "Yeah, so we do around $100 million a year as an e-commerce retailer in the US." And I was like, "Oh, damn. Okay, let's talk. But yeah, I think it was kind of a really good certification that we were doing the right things and that the content was working, because we'd work with a lot of SMEs, but SMEs is quite a big thing. You can have a 1-2 man woman band, but then someone that's still 50-60 heads can still be an SME in there. And that was a kind of a further kind of targeting of it as well, because it sounds really strange, but actually the bigger companies are the easier ones to deal with. They have a more solid grasp of the metrics that actually matter. Their emotions aren't completely and utterly tied to everything that happens, so they don't tend to bottleneck their own growth. Whereas for kind of smaller businesses on that sliding scale, you see that the bottleneck is often the founder or the person closest to it, because they want to do it a certain way, and they kind of not ignore the data, but they blur the data to get what they want out of it. Whereas when we come in, it's that very autistic approach of no, this is the data, this is what needs to be done. It's not a matter of opinion. This is what your reality is, and this is what needs to happen afterwards. And once you've got enough data, like we have over the last 8 years now, to go, this is where they were with your problem, this is what we did, and this is where they are now. It's an easier conversation to have. You still face people now that want to put their personal emotions over the efficiency of the business, and that's okay, but it's not for us. So we just tend to kind of work with serious people now.
Mm-hmm. And would you also say that if it's like a bigger company, that's easier when it comes to budget? Because I feel like mostly people want to understandably save as much as possible. So is it the case, or it really depends on everyone?
Yeah, so that's another kind of way, I suppose, not easier because there's a lot of money kind of being spent, but ultimately the more you're spending, the faster you're getting data back in, the faster you learn. So you can take the bigger swings. Whereas, if you're dealing with a 2K budget or something like that, you can't test as aggressively. So you have to be, yes, there's a proportion of looking at, yes, there's a proportion of data in it. You might only be able to test 2 angles instead of 6, for instance. And then if neither of those work, then it's a big risk on your next 2 angles that you're going to test. So it is actually significantly more difficult to deal with a kind of like smaller spend client that isn't getting data in as fast. And that's still okay, and it's still doable, provided that you don't have to deal with all the emotional baggage of it as well. So the managing expectations piece is way more important on a smaller level, whereas the big companies, they kind of get it, and they're usually looking for 10, 15, 20% efficiency gains here and here, rather than a full end-to-end business transformation, which is kind of where we've had to go to now, because ads are just one piece of a puzzle. We just find the right person and get the click, but actually it doesn't matter how good your ads are, how much you're spending, if your offer's poor, your landing page is weak, your website, your returns are sky high. So we kind of come in end to end now and say, look, based off all the data, here are all the weak points in that journey. Let's plug them, and then by the nature of it, you won't even need to spend any more money because you're saving 10% here, 5% there, 20% there. So you're actually making more money off the same spend, which is the first kind of logical place to start before you just start ramping spend. So we kind of come at it from that angle as an efficiency standpoint.